British friends. Oh, hi.
With artists. My name is Rachel Wilkins. I am delighted to be here this morning, joined by a wonderful guest, Pamela Vitale. Welcome, Pamela. It's great to have you here.
Hi, how are you? I'm doing great. This is fantastic. I'm so excited.
I'm so happy to have you here. So we were just talking, we were chammering about coffee before we jumped on. So what is in your cup this morning? What do you have?
This is Give Coffee, local, what do they call it? Roasters in Canton. Love them. They're awesome people. And I can't figure the orientation of this camera, so pardon me if I seem a little off.
Can we give them a shout out? What is the name of the company? Give?
Give.
That's a great name for a coffee store. I love it. Well, I just have my black coffee with my lovely owl this morning.
Are they lovely, lovely owls?
All right, so welcome to everybody joining us. This is Coffee with Artists. Obviously, every week we meet, we get together with some wonderful creative minds. We have coffee, we talk, we take questions. So I want to just really introduce Pamela. Pamela's showing her artwork, which is a great sign that this is going to be a good interactive session. Pamela is originally from New York, grew up in New York State, now living in the burbs, as she put it, or in the countryside in Connecticut. But was around New York for an extensive period of time. So I'm sure we're going to have lots of things to talk about today. Pamela, you describe yourself as a mixed media artist, but you're somebody who really dabbles in quite a few different genres of artwork. Tell us a little bit about kind of your history in terms of music, video, art, visual arts.
I'm naturally curious, I think it is. I mean, I've been an artist since I was alive. As a child, and it was constantly around me and fed to me by my parents and family. So there was always like either opera or dance, or my sister practicing her cello, or my parents showing us art in galleries or in the house or PBS. So there was always that, and I was always like either dancing or doing art or listening to music or watching old movies. I was a little bit of an introvert kid, except when it came to adults. So when I wasn't out playing with kids, because I wasn't, I was inside really like learning and experimenting and playing with ideas. It's just something that I've always done. So, and if it's a medium, I would just like explore. I mean, a fine example is there were some paints, because my dad did art. And there were some oil paints on the counter downstairs in the basement. And I think I was 4 or 5 years old. And I took a red oil paint and some brushes and I painted the whole kitchen.
Wow.
Red. And then I proceeded to tell my dad, "Look, Dad, look what I did."
That's amazing. Did you get in trouble?
Yeah. Well, my mother laughed, but my dad was like, "I can't deal with her." He didn't know what to do.
So it sounds like you had a really supportive and nurturing family. And I think that, for so many that can really inform their decisions. Like I hear from so many people that, they didn't have that, or they maybe had the love and the nurture, but they didn't have the, oh yes, you're an artist. Let's really encourage this. Would you say that really helped you to kind of carve out your voice?
It did and it didn't, because my father is very classical based, and he's also fearful of me not taking the right road, because he was like, how could you survive being an artist? You have to have some sort of skill. And I was like, that is a skill. But so that was always a conflicting thing, but I think that taught me to fight more for my desires, because I saw how hard he did work. And my mother was always supportive. Oh, even if she didn't understand, but she actually told me recently, she goes, "I kind of don't understand your creative abstract stuff, and I'm usually very fixed on things that I understand." And I was like sitting there scratching my head going, and all these years you've been so supportive.
Well, I guess we don't have to be understood to be supported, right? I mean, I'm an abstract painter as well. And, I've so many times you hear that question, well, what is it? What does it mean? And sometimes we don't even know ourselves, right?
Well, because, I mean, look, this is very abstract.
Beautiful.
Right? So, but people love it because they're not sure what it is. And they go, I don't know, but it's so appealing. and then they try to discover what it is for themselves. And I love that, because it's really about self-discovery. So
What have been some of the kind of interesting things that, because obviously with abstract, it is totally open to interpretation, and it's always fun to kind of hear the contrasting and different opinions that come out. But what has been some interesting things that you've heard from people?
From in interpretation? Oh my God. They see animals, or they see skulls, which usually there is skulls.
Yeah.
Hidden, there's always people or expressions hidden in my work. But I've heard people say they see animals, or they just don't know what it is. And I think that's really important to me. But it's mostly when they see like animals, and I'm like, well, that was not my intention, but that's kind of cool. I see it.
Yeah.
I like that, because then they feel. I had a gentleman go, I saw an octopus that's coming through water on one of my pieces, and I was like, you know what? That's pretty amazing, because you're experiencing it on another level, even though I know it's water. This other piece that I'm working on, and I know it's like showing that kind of depth thing. I'm not sure what I'm bringing out of it, but if it brings out an octopus for you in the depths of the water, what a fantastic thing to experience. And then that person he felt so connected to it, and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool.
That's amazing.
So the appeal is important to me, and some people say they don't even know why. They don't understand it because they have no visual context, or they don't see those things in their mind. They can't visualize it, and it seems to be important for them to experience something they don't have experience in. So I think as creatives, I'm realizing more and more that it's a gift that we have, or a skill, or some sort of innate biological thing that others don't have. So it's sort of our responsibility to give people that experience, and explain that to them, that it's something I see all the time. This is how I see the world. This is how I close my eyes. This is what I see. This is how I see the world if I take my glasses off. So I think that's an awesome thing to be able to express. And I know, working with you, we're talking about our story. And I'm enjoying that process of learning, how do I express these things? How do I discover more of how I'm perceiving it to give that gift to others?
It's amazing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's not so much about, here's the art. It's also how we're experiencing it. And how we're getting it on the canvas or paper or video, or whatever it is that we're using.
So let's talk about process a little bit, because right now you are working in primarily paint, right? It's mixed media, but your go-to is paint, I believe, for this minute.
I'm working in oils, and I love oils. It's probably it's my favorite medium.
So
it's so expressive. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So it's very expressive. It has the ability to, if we're looking at this again, look at how the natural light is bringing this out. And so for me, it's like working in glass, colored glass, and light. And so for me, oils just allows you to do anything. And I found that working with watercolors has a similar kind of way of working like oils. Video is a great interpretation of oils. And I'm exploring glass blowing very soon, because like I said, the stained glass and glass blowing has that same iridescent quality. I mean, oils pick up natural light. It just exudes energy. I guess, yeah, why do I work in different mediums? A couple of reasons. One, it just allows me to explore possibilities that are similar to color and light and energy. and kind of that 3D quality. Again, I was showing you before, everything was becoming very 3D in my work, so that the edges are coming through. So for me to work in something like wood or glass or even video, it gives people the experience of being immersed in it. In different ways of seeing that light and story and figures and movement and colors. So I don't know. I don't know how to explain it any other way.
That's all right. No, you're doing a great job. So I'm interested in like, how do you, like the process, right? How do you start out a new piece? Like, does inspiration just kind of come to you and you just hit the canvas? Are you planning before, or are you somebody who just kind of lets it work out as you're involved in the piece, whatever medium that may be?
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Video is a little different. Video, you really literally have to sit there and conceptualize some process, or at least there's a subject matter, or there's something happening, or the light in an area is coming through a building and it's just creating some sort of situation. So it's very situational or planned. And I've done literally storyboards, or I've sat there and had to do mini sets, and I've had to go into editing and really sort of layer and do things with it, and then come up with some sort of music or ask someone to do a piece of music. So that's much more complicated. And sometimes I use a script. I write a script. So that's, much more developed. As far as my fine arts is concerned, it's intuitive. So my painting is much more, I don't know how to express that. It's just, I can actually do a drawing, which is much more figurative. And may I show you?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is a big piece in the new technique.
Beautiful. Wow. So you're getting a little bit more representational right now.
Well, it's what I've done in the past, and I used to call myself figurative abstract, because I always had figures in my work. And in the last couple of years, I've been experimenting with the style. So, for example, here we go.
I love that this is interactive today. This is perfect.
No, I have to. This is the previous, what I was doing in the last couple of years. So I was doing a lot of mini portraits.
Beautiful.
Wow. Mini portrait, thank you. And then I was doing landscapes, and then I was doing the very minute kind of underwater creatures and worlds, and kind of textural. But I did a whole bunch of portraits. I mean, tons of small, tiny portraits and a whole bunch of landscapes. And then I got really minute, which is some of the pieces I'm working on right now. Well, I have been. This one's still in progress. But what's happening is I'm bringing the whole experience out. Even with this one, if you can see, wrong edge. I'm bringing the edges out.
Right.
So, and then I realized that I'm not doing figures, and I miss it. And I'm very, I can draw figures from my brain. I don't need models or photographs. And somebody mentioned that to me because I showed him my whole portfolio from I had a huge portfolio. And he was like, wow, you're able to do that. And I was like, why am I not still doing that? So he helped me reintroduce it. I mean, just by asking that question and observing my ability. And I was like, I miss it.
What do you miss about it?
The dynamic aspects of it. Like, I can really bring people into a world. God, I have another piece. It's huge. Hold on one second.
Yeah, go for it.
So this one I did. Oops, it's huge.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness, that is huge.
It is huge. But anyway, this has 3 or 4 figures in it. Sorry, it's not easy to show. But that one I did 7 years ago. And I think, to me, figures are part of the experience. So, you know, if I figure out this new style, which I did, now I'm ready to start putting the figures in. And representing, landscapes and things that are much more clear. And what I can do now is take that technique and put it around the figures, and so that suddenly it's not just about the surface experience, which is what a lot of these newer ones are. It's going to be about the actual, you know, objects.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it because it's going to be rough. It's going to be very difficult.
But it's exploration, right? Like anything in artwork, it gives you're exploring different methods, different strategies, different mediums, and that's really part of the excitement of being an artist.
It is. I mean, it's a privilege. I'm going to be quite honest, to be able to do that. But it's also, what did you say? You said this months ago. Is that, do you have the innate drive and need? And I'm like, yeah. Since I was very little, I cannot not do it. So the more I do it, the happier I am. And now that I've moved into my new place in New Hartford, Connecticut, I was living in Collinsville. Now I'm living in a bigger place where I actually have a front studio kind of gallery space. I have I know.
I'm so excited for you for this space. For anybody who, Pamela and I know each other because Pamela's actually in my art business bootcamp class, and she's been just a joy to work with. But Pamela just moved into like a dreamy space that we're all jealous of because she has a street entrance, like gallery / studio. It's like an artist dream. So, and you just moved in like a week or 2 ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, and I'm excited about it. The lighting in here is fantastic. Lots of windows. I mean, I have a space for my music in the back, so I can have it together or apart. I have my computer set up, you know, right near it, so I can, you know, video stuff. And
let's talk a little bit about your music, because I, you know, for those that are just tuning in, Pamela is also a musician and a video artist as well. What does kind of music give you that maybe visual art doesn't, and how do they kind of complement each other?
Well, I think it's about expression, and it's just using mediums are mediums. And yes, they influence the work, absolutely, because it is a part of the experience. But it's also about how you're interpreting your own reality and taking that medium and seeing what you can do with it. So music, it became an obsession. What else is new? To express ideas in ways that were about words and were about sound. And I guess I correlated it to dance and brushstrokes. So if you think about your rhythms and your different rhythms, and you're taking those different rhythms and you're putting them together in a sequence, you're doing that with dance, you're doing that with brushstrokes, you're doing that with your drawing, you're doing it with your video editing if you do it a certain way. So it's and then you're taking words, which are poems, which is art, because it's describing an experience and an emotion and in an environment. It's just another form of painting to me. So I wanted to explore that and kind of conquer it in some ways, even though my work is very creative. My music is. I had bands and I would play on stage, and I actually recorded 4 or 5 songs in studios with producers and other musicians. Awesome. So yeah, it was quite an experience. And then I realized I miss painting. I went back to it.
It's funny because when I think about music is such a it feels like kind of an extroverted experience. Like, 'cause generally, if you're a musician, you perform music, right? Whereas art can be very insular. Like,
Yeah.
what does music give you maybe that art doesn't?
Oh, voice, obviously.
Yeah.
And it also challenges me to be on stage. Not like I've always been on stage.
Mm.
It's part of my personality. So whether I was in front of a video or whether I was performing dance or whether I was doing performance or something like that, even my artwork, um, it actually forces me to be in front of people.
Mm.
Even though there's a part of me that's very introvert and I'll disappear all winter long, produce work. I love social media and things like this because it allows us as artists to actually say, hey, here's our world. And we have a sense of pride in that because it's, it's kind of like a cocoon that we've developed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or I don't know what else to call it. So here's our cave.
Yep.
Come and join our cave. Okay, get out.
Our crazy cave.
And yeah, right. And here's some art you can buy from that cave, so which is awesome too. I mean, I don't know. Video, I got obsessed in 2000, 2001. I think I bought a camera and in the industry that I'm in, which is multimedia and advertising and marketing, video became a thing. I bought a camera and I just couldn't stop. I would carry it everywhere and just take a lot of video. And then I learned to edit and it just became, another obsession. Script writing became an obsession. I took some video and script writing and I went to get a master's at ITP Tisch at NYU. This is years ago, 18, 19 years ago. So I really focused on multimedia for new technology and interactivity, but I really focused on script writing, storytelling, and video and motion graphics because that was something I had been doing professionally and independently. So then I just got really into it and I produced, I think, about 11 or 12 video art pieces. And I had a bunch of them in Europe shows, film festivals. I've had some in New York, but mostly in Europe because my art just seems to do well there. My video art rather. Very experimental stuff. Some of it performance art, some of it sort of like moving paintings. And I originally, when I was in grad school, I was like, maybe I should go into 3D. And then I realized video was perfect translation of my work because my work looks like it's always moving and the colors and the layering is very much like video. So it was just a perfect translation. And I get obsessed. I like to get obsessed about mediums, so to see how far I can take it. But right now, I'm so excited to be back into painting. I started again when I moved to Connecticut. I think November 2014, I started painting oils again, and I literally have not stopped. And I've been selling and also showing and really building a new layer of where my style is, because it all looks the same. It's just that it keeps taking it to another level. And where I am right now is probably the most exciting place I've been in a long time with the painting, because I can see so many translations. So yeah, and I'm excited to work with you guys. I think it's a great program. You're so supportive and you really know how to get into that marketplace. You know how to help people sort of have an understanding of how things work and how to represent yourself and how to have the story. And like I said, group support, which is like the most amazing thing. I'm really enjoying it. Thank you.
Well, I'm enjoying having you in the class. We have a really super fun group, so we're
yeah, we do.
So I want to talk a little bit about your time in New York. You mentioned, you got a master's in tech and art at Tisch NYU, which is a phenomenal school. Amazing, programs out of Tish. But you were spent a lot of time in Brooklyn and in New York, and really one of the original hipsters, right?
I like to think so. I got there I went to undergrad at School of Visual Arts in the 80s.
Okay.
And when I moved in Brooklyn, I think it was 89.
Oh, you were really one of the originals then, if it was 89. Yeah. Before it was cool, right?
It was pretty rough, but it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. And, at the time, I was living with a boyfriend and a few other people who had been living there, and it was up and coming. It was cool. It was edgy. It was multicultural. So many artists, so many musicians. Technology was suddenly exploding, and we really we ate it up. And there's so much going on. I love Brooklyn. I miss it. You can walk and ride your bike everywhere. You don't need a car. You really have access to near, Manhattan, which, all the galleries and in the businesses. But Brooklyn was just re-exploding and expanding into this very underground scene. And there was so much going on. I'm very privileged to have gone through that and been a part of it. So, and it really influenced all my art.
I often think about New York. I'm not somebody who went to art school, but I think what New York City gives you as a creative person, you can't put a monetary value on that. There's something in those streets, particularly in the West Village, like around that kind of MacDougal, Greenwich Street, Greenwich Ave, that whole area, because that this is like the core, the center of the creative universe for music, for art, right around that NYU campus. That there's something magical that's happening there, that it gives you something that you can't really even describe, right? It's just it's a confidence, it's a belief that you can be an artist, that you can be expressive and be creative and not be questioned about taking a different path, because it's this like fertile breeding ground for fellow creatives.
I agree, and there's generations and generations and generations there. I mean, and as they say, every 5 years, New York City completely changes. So you're never bored. I mean, people are always dead. I'm like, I've heard New York City's dead for years. You've got to be kidding me. No. It will never die because it knows how to reproduce itself. It knows how to empty out the streets, empty out the people leave, and then it refills. And that's the awesome thing about it, because it's always regenerating itself. It's always challenging the next generation or the one that's still there. And yeah, it's incredibly supportive, but also incredibly brutal. You know, as that quote from Sinatra, you make it in New York, you make it anywhere. I forgot what it is. Yeah, it's true. It
will chew you up and spit you out, but it also will also afterwards.
It does. It really loves its people. It loves its history more than anything, and it loves the rawness of survival. And I think everybody included, and I mean, the diversity is outstanding. The different economic backgrounds is insane. And you just really, I mean, I used to just walk around for hours just so that I can see what's going on, and just to see and meet people, ride my bike for hours just to see what's going on. So it's neat. It's a really cool place. Why I left, because I was there for a very long time. Whether I go back might happen. I think right now it's about establishing myself even more so as an artist than I ever have. Because I think I've been skating the surface for years, because I work in the media industry and advertising industry. So I tend to rock both sides. But I think at this point in my life, I really want to dive fully into the art world because it's all I've ever wanted to do
Mm.
since I was a kid. So, and I don't see what's stopping me at this point. I've done and tried everything, so maybe it's time to stop and actually start produce, and really come up with something that's going to blow people's mind. And I feel like I have every opportunity to do that, and I'm already on my way.
Let me ask
So,
you a question as a fellow artist who's also left New York City.
yeah.
Do you feel, because now that we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about how I used to create in New York versus how I create now. Do you
Well,
feel
where are you now?
I'm in northern New Jersey, so
Why do
I'm
you
like,
feel that?
I can see the Empire State Building, so it's not like I'm that far away. But there's a when you're in New York, right? Everything is like 3 billion miles per hour, and you don't really realize it until you leave, right? And I remember just feeling like I was always frantically creating, like everything was fast and frantic, and I was like hanging things in shows while it was still wet, and just constant like go go go.
Yeah.
Whereas when you move out, like I felt like everything just kind of slowed down, and that was actually resulted in a different kind of work. Did
Oh,
that
that's
happen to you?
interesting. That's interesting.
Or did you see any difference in how you created and what you produced?
I think I had the space to produce. I had the quiet
Mm.
time and isolation to do so, and less pressure. The thing though for me is I had all that franticness and show, but then I changed my reality a little bit and started getting very much inner, that New York City self where you start to hide in your apartment. And I think that's what I started realizing is I was hiding.
Mm.
And you can't hide because you need to be out and about and producing. So you need to be able to do both worlds. And when I came here, I was forced to stop,
Mm.
forced to focus, forced to be in a quiet space, and I was actually quite grateful.
Mm.
Even with the COVID isolation for what was it, 2-3 months,
Mm.
I was one of those people who was producing a
Mm.
lot of work. So for me, because I'm so severely distracted,
We all are.
and I like socializing and I like exploring and I like getting in the car or on a trail or in a town and really just exploring. Being forced to isolate is very productive for me. So I think that's probably why I moved even further away from people. So yes, I think at this moment in time, it's changed my work and made me it's made me to really focus and discover more of my technique
Mm.
instead of running on empty all the time.
Right. I understand and agree. And plus, it's fine when you're in your 20s, but once you kind of
Yeah,
starting to get near that 40, it's a lot.
too much.
So I totally relate. But so you mentioned being around kind of you were in like the underground scene really in the in the late 80s, early 90s, like in
Absolutely. And in the 2000s too. I mean, I have to say, again, privilege. I
Mm.
experienced some amazing things in New York. I can't even.
Can you share any stories with us?
Oh gosh, going to events that were in old warehouses that some kid or two or three or four rented and turned into an underground club, and they were probably mostly illegal. But nobody cared at the time. So you'd have Christmas trees upside down and sculpture rooms and all sort. I mean, it was just a discovery of like who can do what, and I would be involved in some of those experiences. I don't know. It's it. What? How do I describe it? It's amazing. And constantly involved with building events and underground club scenes that would only last a couple of days. Um, you know, where the fire trucks would show up and everybody would have to leave.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of those. Or participating in, big events with local artist groups or a Burning Man community in New York City, which is ginormous, which I was involved with for 3 years. So I helped organize with these great, people who are very involved with Burning Man. Organize fundraisers and big events for like 3,000 to 5,000 people. So we get access to warehouses and we build these amazing experiences. Yeah, it was, that was amazing. It was intense though, because people, artists and creative people in New York City are intense. And just watching also Dumbo, for example, and Bushwick and different parts of Brooklyn that just exploded in the art world and just expanded on all these young people showing up and taking up, these warehouses and factory buildings and, whatever they can find and just turning them into art or, art orgs or theater orgs or whatever it is. And then just seeing the communities change because of it. I mean,
that's because quite often we're like the start of the regeneration of a neighborhood. Like artists go in, they beautify a neighborhood, they start collectives, they bring community, and then all of a sudden the real estate developers are there, and none of us can afford to stay.
Yeah. Then we all have to leave. Exactly. Yep. I mean, that happened several times. Unfortunately, I mean, Dumbo is. I never lived there. I always wanted to, but I was part of the whole scene of rebuilding it because, I mean, it was quite a, excuse my expression, shithole. I mean, there were gangs of dogs and burned out cars, and we would drive there just for the fun of it, just to see how crazy it is. And it was all factories. I mean, it was all like, printing press, giant printing presses, and big factories doing large scale jobs. But over the years, artists were able to take advantage of it and, rent it out for nothing or very little. And Dumbo literally was rebuilt by artists.
For anyone wondering what the hell Dumbo is, it's an area in Brooklyn that faces the skyline, and it stands for Down Underneath the Manhattan Brooklyn Overpass.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful, but it's gorgeous. It's so expensive right now. It's millions and millions of dollars. But some of them are what? I'm sorry.
That's the sad thing about New York, because a lot of these artist communities just cannot afford to be there anymore. Like the cost of rent. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens after COVID, because so many businesses are going to be gone, and there's going to be so many vacant spaces. But I know from growing shows that you just cannot get space in New York or the boroughs for anything.
Even now. Because that's what I was wondering. Because, like I said, every 5 years, New York regenerates. So the economy kind of drops out. Rents go down. So I'm wondering if it's going to sort of allow artists to re-enter. This is a whole new generation. I mean, there's a whole new generation of artists and musicians, and they want to get out of wherever they are. So urban environments, different states. So, I mean, if New York really wants to regenerate itself properly, it needs to lower the rents, get those creatives in, and the startups, and really bring it back up. I mean, that's how I see its survival. Yeah. So, I'm hoping
it's going to be an interesting time to see what actually comes out of this whole mess. For sure.
Or it's going to be remote central, where we can actually live anywhere like this and have discussions about, and shows about art, which I think would be also a wonderful thing, because I think the rest of the world needs to have access. So it's a weird time.
That's an understatement. Tell me about some of your influences. Who's been your creative influences?
Oh, God. I'd say John Singer Sargent, Francis Bacon, huge, emotional, psychological. a lot of Picasso, Dali, Rembrandt is definitely, Michelangelo is definitely, a lot of the impressionistic artists, a lot of the German artists of the last century, um, French. But of this century, I have to say, I have to give some onus to Andy Warhol, because he was the ultimate multimedia artist. He and Picasso, and I would say Dali, they took advantage of all the mediums. They were known for certain things, famous for certain things, but they really understood the need to just move in every avenue. I mean, that's what, to me, a true artist is when you're able to take advantage of every medium within your style.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, it'd be great to be known for one thing. And I would say, yes, I would love to be known for somebody who was an oil painter, because there's a romantic, emotional attachment to that one, because it is such an old technique. And Sargent and Bacon, to me, were just geniuses on opposite spectrums, but they both used the same techniques, ironically enough. And they were, some sort of close in generations. At least one influenced the other, I think. But I mean, I can't just give that as my influencers. There's filmmakers, there's musicians.
Tell us about them. Who do you kind of draw to musically and as directors?
Oh my God.
Or we'll be here for another 2 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to take a while.
There's often a cross section when you look at it. There's a lot of similarities generally.
What, in terms of other mediums?
Well, in terms of like who you like as a visual artist, and who you like as a director, and who you like as a musician, you can often look at it and say, okay, I can see that. What the common thread is between those mediums.
It's a hard one, because gosh, I'm trying to think of filmmakers. I mean, geez, Hitchcock, just brilliant. But then there's a whole bunch of filmmakers from the 60s and 70s that had access to, color in ways that people aren't really taking advantage of now, because they take it for granted. So, the epic filmmakers of the 60s and 70s, and my brain is totally not the names of these directors. I'm sorry.
Who do you listen to as a musician? Who do you listen to when you create artwork?
Oh God. Jazz, experimental music, experimental rock, acoustic styles that do crossover classical, jazz, acid, and
jazz acid.
Yeah, jazz, acid jazz, and I know acid jazz. Just people who are sort of taking advantage of the note in a way that you can hear the dynamics, or the expression, or just things that emotionally, like Beck. To me, he's a very multimedia, not so multiversited musician, because he takes different styles and he puts his own style in it, and he generates something new. I would say I'm not a Lady Gaga person, but she is another kind of multiverse artist. Her music, to me, I'm not, I don't attach myself to it, but I appreciate her artistic endeavors and values. She is an artist.
Outfits, I mean.
What? Play it again?
Her outfits, her fashion choices.
Well, she crosses all boundaries of artistic endeavors. So for me, Prince was, I cannot, Bjork was a big hero of mine, even though she's a year older than me. Because they take the music to another level as an artist. I would say PJ Harvey, one of the most genius artists I know, and I relate my own music to hers. Nick Cave was another one of the Bad Seeds. So my work tends to be kind of dark and experimental and edgy. And I'm very influenced by what I went through in the 90s. So you can say I'm a 90s generation. I'm the beginning of the X Gen.
Gen X, right? Yep.
I'm so that, that's what it kind of makes me laugh, but I should have it tattooed to me.
I'm like right on the cusp between Gen X and millennial. So
okay.
I have a foot in both worlds for sure.
Yeah, and I understand, the concept of a boomer, but I'm not one. So, it's like, no. But, it has to do with the fact that I was born in the 60s, and you have pop art, you have all that, very experimental changes in styles, and it was very commercialized. In the 70s, I mean, it's so much of it is, even though I don't listen to Frank Zappa, his music totally influenced me. Even though his language killed me. But his creative aspects really influenced who I am. A lot of those people, the punk era, everything. It's just, I'm a media consuming person. So whether I like it or appreciate it or somehow it affects me, it's always there. But yeah, more edge and dark, edgy, sort of abstract, kind of figurative. It's very much who I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Folks, we are going to take some questions for Pamela. So everybody who's watching, we have a bunch of comments, but do jump in and ask a question. We're going to be here for a few more minutes. So if there's anything that you want to ask Pamela about her New York days or about her wonderful new studio space or anything about her creativity, do jump in. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. I guess one of my core questions is always, what is it that you hope that the viewer takes away when they stand in front of your artwork?
That they see the world differently, that they're able to see the world differently once they look at my art. They're able to go, oh, I've never seen it that way. And then when they're able to look away and see their own world, they have another and new layer of interpretation and experience. And it's also learning more about themselves, because I always find that I find the light or the beauty in the darkness. And that's always been something, or in the texture or in the experience. And some people are like, oh, it's so scary. And it's challenging yourself in a new reality is scary. But I'm hoping people are able to embrace it and see it as something beautiful and not scary. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. It's amazing. So what is kind of the most rewarding and validating thing about being an artist?
Seeing something come alive from nothing and seeing it improve to another level, and people getting excited about it and going, oh my God, what is that? I don't know what it is, but I love it. Or, wow, I can see something in that, and it makes me feel something. I don't know whether it's good, bad, or whatever. Yeah, to touch people.
Yeah, if you weren't an artist, if you weren't creative, what do you think you'd be doing?
In terms of any other art form, or just
if somebody took away your creativity today, what kind of career do you think you would have? It's a terrible, terrible thought, I know.
I'd actually probably go into physics or genetics or history. I mean, my minor was always history or social science, but I have an obsession with sci-fi, science relationship.
There's a lot of parallels between art and science.
Well, sci-fi is very creative, and science is part of that. You have to understand it. You have to understand social behavior and history. Um, uh, and I love genetics, DNA. It's the coolest thing in the world. It's because it's kind of the creativity behind and the mediums behind our own existence. Physics, yeah, theory. So yeah, you got me.
And I hope to God that never happens for you, although I'm sure you're a great scientist as well. Because, like you opened this interview, you said, I'm curious, right? That's the essence of who you are as a creative.
Oh, curiosity is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you recognizing that. I mean, I was like, oh, yeah, that is me. It's just how curious can I be? I just can't. And somebody mentioned, she said, you're a friend of mine. She's like, you're very nosy. I'm like, it is, but it's curiosity. It's just the innate need to just explore and understand. And it's just a constant need. Whether I take it in or I memorize it or not, it's not the thing. It's just knowledge.
I think the world would be a lot better place if more of us were more curious about each other, and learning, different people's experiences and cultures and
absolutely. And I think that's why I love New York for so long. There's so much, and it kind of takes down the walls of fear for a lot of things, because once you're more curious and once you want to know more, there's really no boundaries. Well, there's boundaries to knowing what you don't want. But sometimes in New York, when you're young or when you're intoxicated, there's no boundaries at all. And that's interesting too.
Zero. But we won't even, that's a whole other conversation.
It is a whole other conversation. It's made for that. And so there are safeguards, sort of. No.
Yeah. I think, and I think we talked about this in boot camp, but, the idea of like some kind of system where we could spend time with others who are completely different to us, who have like different experiences, and just spend like an hour with somebody asking them questions about their life, their existence, their experiences, their prejudices they've experienced. Like, we would just be so much better as a society for that, because it's so easy for us to blame and dislike and judge
or isolate
who's like an abstract version of a black person, a Jewish person, somebody LGBTQ.
Or conservative versus liberal, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. When we sit down and have conversations face to face, we can see the challenges and the real life experiences.
And how similar we really are.
Yep.
I mean, it's really beautiful. I mean, one of the things that I miss and love about New York is I would literally walk for hours or ride my bike in any neighborhood. I didn't really have that much fear, and just say hello to people. I would randomly go, oh, wow, what a neat storefront, and just talk to somebody for a while, or just meet somebody on the street who was doing something I was, just have a conversation. I was just doing that always. And it's very distracting. But it's also a really expanding experience. It expands your perception of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. It's a great idea. We should do that.
We should do that. It's just a reminder that we're all made of the same cells. Like, it's not too complicated,
No, it's not.
So, well, this has been wonderful. Let's just see. We have a couple comments here. Elena K says, that should be your next series, DNA Art in Your Style.
Oh,
there we go.
Cool.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
Heather says, yay, DNA. Heather is a scientist, so
cool.
There you go.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Let's see what else. Aaron says, I'd probably be a farmer. That's amazing.
Nothing
Yeah,
wrong with that. That's
and
interesting.
what everybody would be if they weren't their specific, whatever their career is right now. If they could, somebody took away their ability to do that, what would be your career? I'd love to see that in the comments.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Pamela, this has been amazing. What a joy to spend time with you.
Likewise.
Always a pleasure. Let's let people know where they can learn more about you, where they can go check out your art, where they can buy your artwork. Let's get that in the comments. What is your Instagram, website, whatever you want to give me?
My Instagram is literally Pamela Vitale, no space. So PAMELA VITALE. And you can see all my art there. I also have a spot with the same name in Saatchi Art. So it's saatchiart.com/Pamela Vitale. And then in Facebook, which I have, it's all art right now. If you just find my name, Pamela Vitale, I think it's Pamela Vitale, and then there's one that's Pamela Vitale _art or art. I don't think they'll allow you to do underscore on Facebook. So definitely find me there. And then sometimes you can find me on my website, which is xyeye.com.
Awesome.
And then soon you will see me on LinkedIn. I will be doing posts because I am now officially stating that I have Pamela Vitale Art as a business.
Amazing.
So I'm really excited about that. And please, if anyone wants to get some of my newsletters that I'm going to be doing, which are going to be really fun and very informative, definitely check me out at Pamela@xyeye.com.
Amazing.
Send me your email.
So I've added Pamela's Instagram to the comments, both on YouTube and Facebook. So do go check out her work. Make sure you reach out if you have any questions. I'm going to put this comment on the screen from Elena K. She says, "Perfect. I will follow you. You are an inspiration."
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I am going to do a website.
Yes. Good.
Yes.
Do you want to leave our audience with any final thoughts before we close this out?
Always stay curious, and feel free to check out my work or contact me if you want a private showing. And I'm going to do some shows with some live music and some cocktail hours, and so feel free to contact me. Commissions. I love doing murals, small work, and I'm so excited to have you all in my world. Really enjoy it.
I see a field trip to Connecticut in my future for sure. So
I hope so.
Amazing. All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back next Friday. Big shout out to Pamela. Thank you for spending this time with me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Cheers.